How we doing, everybody? Today I have a team talk for you. I have a team talk with Jordan Weeks. He is going to explain what his job is and what he does. This is going to be a bad team talk because we're also talking about marine, but we're also talking about kind of the biologic side of things and what we can do. So, Jordan Weeks, tell everybody what you do.
Thanks, Andy. I appreciate you having me over here. I work for the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources. I've been doing so for almost 19 years. I have a couple degrees in fisheries science from UW-Stevens Point. And essentially, I mean, to put what I do into a tight little basket is I try to make fishing better, right? So I've been working over here on the Mississippi River since 2016. I've been working in La Crosse since 2005, but always on fish.
Mm-hmm. On fish. That's what we do. Yeah, so basically, he's the man when it comes to fish, I guess we'll call that. And I got just some questions for him. I'm gonna bop some things off of him here. He's gonna give me some answers. Then we're gonna get into some fish talk, which is gonna be really cool. So I guess my question to you right away is, as a boater, as a guy that goes fishing, either inner lakes, river systems, all that stuff, what can I do to help, let's just say, keep the ecosystem alive as a boater? Are washdown stations crucial? Invasive species. I've heard about them. I've never really gone to classes. I guess I'm illiterate to it. You know, I'm like everybody else. I guarantee it. There's a bunch of people watching right now. They're like, yeah, what is an invasive species? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because we talk about handbooks and no one reads anymore, and most of us are too busy to go on the internet. But we'll watch us talk right now, so that's why we're doing this. So can you give me just a rundown on, as a boater, what can I do to help? And let's talk a little bit about invasive species a little bit, if you can.
Yeah, sure. I mean, the first thing that folk can do as a recreational person on the water, or even off the water, is read the regulations, okay. Right?
Yep.
So we have them for a reason. Yep. Boating regulations is a great one. If you're just a boater, you're not a fisherman, it's generally a pretty short document.
Okay.
It kind of teaches you, well, it teaches you the laws, right? But it kind of gives you a clue into some of the ethics out on the water, right?
Yeah.
You know, as far as that goes, it's real easy. Read the regulations. I find that very few people actually do. That goes for a boater, that goes for fishing regulations. They do change fairly frequently, so it's good to read them.
Yeah.
And you know, as far as like what you can do is just kind of be observant of the environment. If you see something that you think is wrong, whether it's a greasy film on the water, or you see some dead fish, or a congregation of dead fish, or anything that you look at and you think, you know, I'm not sure if that's right.
Right.
You know, you can give us a call. You'd be surprised at how few calls we get about things like that. In terms of invasives, there are a lot of vegetation species that we need to watch out for. You mentioned washdown stations.
Yep.
They actually work really well.
Okay.
But if there's no washdown station, we can still, as users of the outdoors, be cognizant of what we're looking for, right? You don't want to transport water generally from water body to water body.
Gotcha.
If you're going from pool 7 to pool 8 in the Mississippi, don't worry about it. But if you're going from the Mississippi into Lake Neshonoc or into another end of the lake, you don't want to take any water with you. There's waterborne invasives, there's waterborne viruses that we have to worry about.
Okay.
When we talk about things that you can easily see with your eyes, right?
Yep.
You put your boat in, you pull your trailer out. The trailer is covered in weeds.
Yep.
Just take them off.
Just take them off. Reach down there, grab them.
It's not important that you know what kinds to look out for as much as it is to know that you shouldn't transport them.
Gotcha.
We do have Eurasian water milfoil, which is the big one that most people know about on the Mississippi River. So you get it on your boat trailer, you transport it to another lake, you back in, that floats off, it can actually root and start growing. And so, invasives tend to be really persistent, and they tend to overtake what our natural environment produces. So they'll displace our native plants and animals and take their spot in the environment. And most of the natives aren't the fish that we want to eat. They're not the ones we want to catch.
Right.
They're not really great to have here. So, you know, the big one we get is Asian carp.
Yeah, we will talk about them a little bit.
Yeah, so we can talk about that later, but you know, they've been around since, I want to say, maybe 1994 was the first sighting of them up here.
Okay.
They're very common further south in the river. They're not really something we want to have.
Right. They're a bad deal.
But yeah, I mean, it could be as simple as, you know, you're boating along and you notice that your motor is dripping a slick. There's a slick behind your boat. You know, it's either oil or fuel.
Yep.
And you know, if you run into that situation, we all know that, you know, it's not intentional most of the time.
Correct.
Just get it fixed. Bring it to you.
Yep.
Say, hey, I got something leaking out of my boat. It's
Yep.
this. You'll tell them what it is, and then you can remedy the situation. You don't want to let that keep persisting, because that is stuff that can kill our plants and animals that we all are out there to enjoy.
Yep. Right.
It reduces water quality. It's just overall bad deal.
And then since you mentioned water quality, up here on the river, I've noticed, and I've slowed down fishing since I've owned this, but I still go fishing with my kids from the bank and stuff. I've seen the water clean up. Like every year, it seems to get cleaner. Like I test boats on the Black River all the time, and I swear I can damn near idle out to the middle and see bottom almost nowadays. Mm-hmm. When I started on a kid, Black River was Black River for a reason. It was a sloppy mess.
Sure.
You know, I see more boats, but I see cleaner water. What?
Yeah, there's two main things that goes into that.
Okay.
One is an exotic, which is zebra mussels and quagga mussels.
Okay.
They actually filter the water, right?
Okay.
So they're filtering the particulates out, which clears the water.
Okay.
Not necessarily great, because these mussels take over our native mussel areas. They encrust boats and docks that are left in the water.
Yeah.
You know, they cover our habitat that fish need to survive. But they do make the water clearer.
Okay.
It's not necessarily cleaner, but it's clearer. The other thing that was probably more important is the Clean Water Act. That was an act of Congress that went into effect that mandated certain discharges had to be cleaned up.
Okay.
It's a huge document that we don't have time to go over right now.
Yep.
But it was a really great piece of legislation that helped maintain our water quality and actually improve our water quality.
Okay.
You know, water we take for granted a lot.
Yep.
You know, we take for granted that we can turn on the faucet and drink it.
Right.
You can't do that everywhere.
Right.
And so that Clean Water Act's goal is to help make sure we can do that. And then another step is to make sure that when we go recreate, the water's nice to go to. But yeah, those are the two biggest causes of the cleaner water.
Right.
We also, on the landscape, we're reducing erosion, right?
Yeah.
So that goes into the direct color that you see in the water, right? You see muddy water.
Yeah, the brown.
Most of the time, that's just dirt washing in. We change practices. You know, a lot of these contour strips and grass waterways really help to reduce erosion going in, rather than having raw banks and things like that.
Cool. See, we're learning, we're educated. I guess on that note, talking more about fish, and we'll get to the Asian carp and stuff like that, but I just kind of want to talk about, from a recreational standpoint, let's say I catch a largemouth bass, and I've seen it hundreds of times that one eye is either healed flat or it's whitened out, it's blind. And am I wrong that, like, if I go like this, they see like this, and so this side's like gone? How does that fish survive? I mean, I'm underwater and I can only see this way. I mean.
Yeah, that's a great question. It's one that we don't get asked too often. It's actually a fairly simple answer.
Okay.
Fish have multiple systems that allow them to survive. The one that takes over in that instance is their sense of feel or touch. It's not touch, but it's a sense
our
of
touch.
feel. Yeah, it's our sense of touch. It's their sense of feel. It's called their lateral line.
Yes.
And the lateral line is a nerve. And what happens on fish is it's a series of liquid-filled tubes that go from the outside of the fish's body into this nerve ending. And as we all know, water can't be compressed. When another fish swims in the water, it creates waves, or pressure waves in the water. Those pressure waves are sensed by the lateral line, and then therefore the fish can actually tell that there's another fish swimming next to them, even if they were completely blind. So that's how they still survive. Not all of them do. You know, the ones that we catch are the lucky ones.
Yeah, but they're healthy. I mean, they look good.
The other thing about fish vision is it's really incredible. When you think about their eyes, most predator fish eyes are on the front of their head.
Yep.
Just like our eyes are completely in the front. If you look like a wolf, their eyes are kind of not quite in front.
Right.
They're a little bit further back, but it gives them almost 360-degree vision.
Okay.
The only place that fish can't see is one spot, tiny, right in front of their face, there's a blind spot, and then right behind their head. Otherwise, they can see almost the entire way around them with two eyes. Now, you take half of that away, they can still feed on that side effectively. Maybe they feed that way more often, right? So the chances are when you caught that blind fish, it was hooked in that good eye side.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, you know, they adapt, and if they don't, they're dead. So we'll never catch the ones that die.
Yeah, so it makes perfect sense when you're ice fishing and you're looking down the hole and the fish comes up to it and they get right in front of it and they sit there and you're like, why won't you bite it? Why won't you bite it? They can't see it.
They might not be able to see it.
That makes perfect sense.
And you go up real quick and then they go up and eat it.
Yeah, or you move it to the side and they come back.
I mean, I'm a muskie angler. It's classic. you get a bucktail in front of a muskie, there's a spot where they can't see it. But you take it out of that spot, then they eat it. So
makes perfect sense, I guess. There we go, talking about that. Another thing, let's talk about fish age. Let's get a quick rundown up here. Let's just say Mississippi, this area, 5 pound largemouth, and let's just coincide with like a 5 pound smallmouth.
Sure.
Let's just use that, and then let's use like a 10-inch bluegill.
Sure.
Can we do that?
Yeah, we can make an estimate now. I won't be able to give you exact data. We're actually working on some of that right now. We took a bunch of different fish. To age fish, we have to actually take a bone out of their head to be accurate.
Okay.
So that means we have to kill them.
Okay.
So we don't want to do that every year all over the place, right? But we do need the information because it's vital to help manage the fishery.
Yeah, exactly.
So we got a bunch of largemouth and smallmouth data this year that we're analyzing currently, but I can give you a ballpark on what that is.
Yeah,
a 10-inch bluegill in the Mississippi River, we've done some work in the past. This was maybe 10, 15 years ago.
Okay.
They're roughly 10 years old.
Okay.
For bluegills, that's for bluegills. If you did the same thing up north, a 10-inch bluegill is possible, but they don't grow typically as fast in different environments. The Mississippi River grows fish really fast.
Okay.
And there's a lot more 10-inch bluegills out here than there is in a lot of lakes up north.
Gotcha.
They grow super fast, very productive.
Yeah.
You're talking about a 5 pound largemouth that's getting up under the upper edge. It could be anywhere from 10 to 20 years old. Bass we know can live up and over 20 years.
Okay.
And that's probably both for largemouth and smallmouth. They're very similar growth rates for the fish. The key thing to remember about fish growth is they grow really fast when they're not mature. So when they're small, it's like being an adolescent as a kid. Your kids grow super fast. I mean, my son is 16. He grew over 6 inches in 1 year.
It's like the puppies I got in my house right now.
Right.
Yeah,
they're putting all their energy towards body growth and size to get big.
Yep.
But as soon as they mature, then they have to take a portion of that energy and put it towards gametes. So eggs and milk.
Gotcha.
Right? And when they have to do that, then they slow down. So a growth curve on a fish goes really fast and then levels out.
All right.
And they typically live a fairly long time. I mean, think about a bass living 20 years. That's a long dang time. You know, even a bluegill 10. A lot of people think, oh shoot, a 10-inch bluegill's 3-4 years old. No way. I mean, walleyes grow really fast out here, faster than almost anywhere else. Save maybe like Green Bay.
Okay.
They grow pretty fast on Green Bay. Productivity plays a lot into that.
Okay. So like you said, the walleyes grow fast out here. Feeding? Is that what goes on here? They have all the forage they need here all the time? Is that why they grow so quickly here?
Yeah, well, I mean, growth has to do with a lot of factors everywhere. Habitat, available forage, and actually water chemistry plays into it.
Okay.
Geology can go into that water chemistry. The best way to describe it is some lakes up north have a sand bottom and are basically distilled water. They're very unproductive waters. It takes fish a lot longer to grow up there than it does in the Mississippi River that has a lot of productivity, has a lot of ions that are available for production of fish and bait. There's almost unlimited, supplies of food. There's 150 species of fish out here, right? You get into our trout streams just 10 miles away in Vernon County, there's less than 10 because the water's so cold and it's productive, but it's not as productive as Mississippi. So it's like there are things that anglers can't really measure, but a good way to look at it is if the water gets green, that's a good sign you have a good productivity.
Green is good.
Green, well, for productivity, like nobody likes it, right?
Oh, right, everybody
hates it. It can make your dog sick, and there's some bad things, but it usually tells you that the fish in that lake will grow a lot faster than they would in the one up north where you can see 20 feet down.
Okay, all right.
So the Mississippi River is super productive, and the thing that every angler wants, and I know what the answer is big fish and lots of them, right?
Right.
No one has ever called me and says, hey, Jordan, can you tell me where there are small fish and just a couple of them?
Right.
Tell me where to go fish there.
Right.
Nobody ever does that.
Right.
So everybody's like, well, where can I go catch the biggest fish? And I want to catch a lot of them. Mississippi is one of those situations. That typically only happens on our biggest waters. The Great Lakes has big fish and lots of them. The Mississippi River has big fish and lots of them. Lake Winnebago, our biggest systems tend to have big fish and lots of them.
And going back to calling you and talking to you, you'll do that. Like, so if let's say I call you up, let's say I'm from Tennessee and I'm coming up here to fish. I can get a hold of you guys and say, hey, can you give me some numbers of where some quality fish are? Or
absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Lake on Alaska. What is Lake on Alaska? Because I get calls here from tournament anglers because we do so many fishing guys. Can you help me with this, that, and the other? And you and I were talking a week ago or so, and you mentioned that they could just call us, or they could go online and check this out.
Yeah.
And I was like, really? And
Yeah.
like numbers, and you could just be like, yeah, no, that bay holds fish this time of year better than this area does. That's available to people.
Yeah, there's a,
To a certain degree.
Oh, actually we work, fish biologists for the DNR work for the people of the state.
Okay.
And are paid by fishing license sales.
All right.
That's kind of a common misconception. People think we get paid by tax dollars, but we don't.
Okay.
If you don't like the fish and you don't buy a license, that's our salary. Our salary is paid because we sell fishing licenses. And there's, over 40 biologists across the state. They're all responsible for either county or multiple counties. I'm responsible for the Mississippi River, 234 miles. That's a lot. There's a team of us though. It's not just me. There's plenty of biologists that are much smarter than I am that can help give you that information. It's really easy. Use the Google machine, say Wisconsin, fish biologist, and the county you want. A name will pop up. You'll get that information. Give them a call. We don't get enough calls. We usually only hear from people when they're mad.
They call here.
Yeah, they might call it there.
Call the mechanic.
But we love getting calls and talking about fishing. I get, not enough of them. I get probably 20 a year. I've had people call from, every state south of here. I've had people call from Alaska.
Yeah.
I've had people call from Canada just to say just those questions.
Right.
And we have a ton of information.
Right.
Now we might not be able to tell you how to catch the fish.
Well, no.
But we can tell you where they are for sure.
For sure. Well, there you go. There's a quick one. You can give Jordan a call when you're coming up here to go fishing, and he's more than happy to talk fish. Obviously.
Yeah, don't everybody call me.
Right, not all at once.
Not all. Yeah, not all.
Give him a day break.
Pick the county you want to go to. I can't tell you about Fond du Lac County very well.
Right. So now let's talk about the everlasting question: the Asian carp. Where are they?
I gotta go.
Are they coming? What's the deal?
Yeah, we have some Asian carp here now.
Okay.
The biggest question I think is, do we have a reproducing population? And I think that at this point our answer would be no, we don't. That will be the time when we really need to be concerned. I believe the first one showed up here in '94. I might be off by a couple years on that date, but that's when I graduated high school.
Right.
So that's quite a long time ago. And there's been reports every year since then, or almost every year since then, of a couple fish. Okay. And that's usually what it accounts to. The biggest capture we've ever had was last March, so almost a year ago. We had 41, and some grass carp, but they're still considered Asian, non-native carps that were caught by some commercial fishermen down here on 7th Street.
Okay.
That was our biggest capture event at one time. That was kind of an eye-opener for me and for us. But we do have a lot of people working on this issue.
Okay.
We're gonna do some stuff coming up here in March. We're gonna do what's called the modified unified method, and we're actually gonna do what a lot of the commercial fishermen do. We're gonna go out and we're gonna run block nets and seines and try to actually find how many we have right now.
Okay.
Currently, we have a few fish with radio transmitters in them.
Okay.
So we know where they are.
All right.
They tend to congregate, so we're using them as Judas fish.
Okay.
So they're gonna tell us where we need to go to net them, and our goal is to get rid of them.
Yep.
We don't want them here. Well, and the biggest danger, and to put it the easiest way that people can understand, is what they'll do is they'll displace our native fish.
Yep.
So say we have, this is not a right number, but 100 fish in the Mississippi right now.
Yep.
If 100 of them are game fish, and we're happy about that, and 50 Asian carp show up, that means there's only 50 game fish left. Because there's only so much food in the system.
Yep.
We can't have the normal number of our game fish plus a huge number of Asian carp and expect to maintain the same thing.
Okay.
If we did, these fish would be super skinny.
Right.
Because they're all fighting for the same food.
Okay.
Essentially. They don't eat the same things, but the same food pyramid, if you want to think of it that way.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, so we're working on it. We're hoping that, it doesn't get to the point where it's a breeding population. We're really hoping it doesn't get to the point where they're hitting you as you're driving around, because they do jump. They get startled by boat motors.
Right.
So they'll jump out of the water. We're really hoping it doesn't get to that point. But we are actively working to avoid that situation.
And you and I talked about breeding, how they breed, and you kind of said that's kind of the problem of them is how they breed.
Yeah.
That's when it gets to be really bad. When you get a breeding stock up here, that's how it gets really bad.
Right.
Kind of go into that for some people, because when you told me that, I was blown away of how they do things.
Yeah, I mean, it's really tough. Like, you think about bass,
Yeah.
a lot of your
Bluegills.
A lot of your folks that listen, I'm sure, are bass anglers, and they make a bed, right? They make this really nice, discreet place.
Yeah.
And if we wanted to get rid of the bass, it would be pretty easy. We could go and we could get them all right off the beds. I mean, we can do, that's easy.
Right.
These guys, Asian carp, are main channel spawners. So they're out in the main part of the heaviest current in a big group, and they let their eggs just flow downstream. And how do you get a handle on something that's in the main channel of Mississippi River that's just floating?
So they produce
hundreds of thousands, millions of eggs.
Millions of eggs, and they're gone and spread
Yeah,
apart like that.
they just go with the current, right? And there's really no way to get around those. So really, the way to stop them is to get rid of the adults, so that they can't do that.
Gotcha.
You know, and they have certain habitat requirements pre-spawn that they need, and that's where we're trying to concentrate our efforts on.
Gotcha.
There's been some success at that. Honestly, not a ton.
Okay.
Really great success. But I'm not all doom and gloom here either. We do have a chance to
Yeah.
make it so that it's not like the Illinois River.
But that comes back to people. If you get around a congregation of them, you're riding through a slough or something, and 10 of them jump out or something, you need to call you guys right away. Or
Yeah, if you find one and you know, it's easy to Google what they look like. You can get it on your phone. Everybody's got a phone, right?
Yeah.
So you Google, you look at what they are. There's a big head and the silver are the two big ones. The grass carp would be another one, and black carp are the four biggies.
Okay.
But if you get one or if you find one, if you could, just give me a call. I'll come pick it up.
Okay.
We need to use fish for research.
Gotcha.
We actually take them apart, find out where they came from, because we can do that with genetics.
Gotcha.
And so we're trying to formulate this plan so we don't have it, 100 fish jumping in your boat when you start your outboard.
Right. So there you go. Make sure you catch one, keep it, and give these guys a call.
Put it on ice.
Yep.
Don't freeze it.
Don't freeze it.
Put it on ice, and we'll come and get it from you. And we'll take care of it. And we really appreciate that. There's only a few of us. There's 7 of us in that 234 miles of the river.
Right.
And we can't be everywhere.
There's 7 of them, and there's 70,000 of us. So let's help these guys.
700,000 probably.
Yeah, 700,000. Let's help these guys. That's basically what we're talking about here. If you see any of that stuff, like even aquatic vegetation dying off, dead fish, you catch some of those fish that they want to do research on. Call them up, help them. They're not bad people. I'm standing right next to him. He's one of my customers. They're good people. They're good for our state. They're good for what we need. Longevity in what we do. Our kids doing what we do. It's important.
And I will say this, and we don't toot our own horn a lot, but every single one of us recreates as well. So there's not a single one of us that wants fishing to be bad or the environment to be bad.
Right.
No one goes into this line of work to make things worse. Everybody wants to make stuff better. So that's all I'll say about that. But we're here to help. We want to try to make fishing better. We want to make sure that we don't have bad situations in the outdoors, and we're partners. We're all partners together in this.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Longevity, all of us together, is going to mean our kids and their kids are going to have just great resources in the end. And it's not like we're talking about being all perfect. Everybody is not perfect. Your boat's going to leak a little oil. But like he said, just address the issue. You get home, I got a water slick the whole way. I got a slick when I'm fishing. Address the issue. You can do it at home. You don't have to bring it to me. You can just check your fuel lines, make sure you're not leaking gear oil, trim fluid. There's a lot that goes into your outboard. You know that, even in your inboard. Make sure that you're taking the time to address those issues, so that way longevity is there for my kids' kids, everybody. So we have this resource in the end. Flip back to fish right now. Okay. One more question about fish. I'm a big deer hunter.
That's not a fish question.
But I'm going into fish. Give me a second. Genetics. I got this 7-pound largemouth. Do genetics move on? Like, are some fish naturally born bigger and stronger than other fish? Deer, that type of thing. Does that happen? And I know you may not have the answer, but I just always had that question, is the solid quality, because I've caught fish out there that seem to be thicker than other fish. They're the same size, but they're thicker. They're taller, you know what I mean? They're not as streamlined. Smallmouth, I used to call them bullet smallmouth and war eagle smallmouth. You get the big wide ones with the lines that are really pissed off, dark brown. They're mean. And then you get the bullet ones that just want to rifle through and they're both 15 inches long. Is there genetics that transfer on, or is there stronger fish? I know there's healthier fish, but does that come from feeding, or is that genetics?
Sure, that's a great question. And first, I'll say that I'm not a geneticist.
Okay.
I wish I was. That's one of the coolest areas of fisheries right now.
Yeah.
But you know, a lot of people see a fish like that, or they see two people, right? And our genetics aren't the same.
Right.
We're both humans, right? But
Right.
I think
Maybe. I may be weird.
Sasquatch.
Yes.
Anyway.
They're over here.
Oh, yeah, no, I saw them in that boat over
Right, right.
But, you know, genetics is only one component, right? And the outward appearance of a fish is what's called a phenotype. That's linked to genetics, but it's not a determiner. But there's many things that
way
determine.
too big for me. Phenotype.
Sorry, that's the word for outside appearance.
Thank you.
Sorry. You'll be telling me about some motor parts
Right.
same way.
Yep.
So habitat goes into what makes up a fish.
Okay.
Environment is part of habitat. Water quality, age is huge.
Okay. Okay.
Because those two 15-inch smallmouth you mentioned
Yeah.
might not be the same age.
Oh.
They might feed on different things.
Okay.
Genetics do play a role, right? But genetics is more of a base level, you know, item in fish. We can tell the difference in genetics of different fish from different places. There are such a thing.
Okay.
The genetics of smallmouth out here are probably different than those in Green Bay.
Right. Right.
We haven't done a lot of work on smallmouth, so we don't know that particularly. But genetics only plays a small role. We were talking deer hunting before. You know, people want to talk about the genetics in Buffalo County being superior to the rest of the state. And
Right.
if you really look at the deer literature, and I'm not a deer scientist, but there's been a lot of research done on deer genetics. The actual genetic code is not hardly different from the northern extent of the range to the southern extent of the white-tailed deer.
Okay.
So it's not genetics, it's age, it's nutrition,
Nutrition.
it's those things that are available. You know, it's lack of big predators.
Food quality, 365.
Yeah, you know, there's more 5.5, 6.5-year-old whitetail bucks in Buffalo County than there is in Vilas County, northern Wisconsin. There are more.
Terrain.
And there's more food, they live longer, there's less predators. Like, that's why there's so many more. But the good way to look at the deer part, and I'm getting off on a tangent, because I'm a deer hunter too.
I know.
If you look at the record size deer, the score
Yeah.
of all the counties in the state,
Yeah.
they're roughly the same.
Yep.
So there's big deer everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
The difference is the number.
Yep.
So same thing with fish, right? The genetic part comes into play, but habitat, age, nutrition, all go into it as well. The behavior, I can't answer that question to you.
Okay.
That's just individual fish.
Okay.
Some fish grow long and thin,
Yep.
just like humans.
Right.
Some fish are short and thick, like me.
No, I wasn't gonna go there.
You don't have to.
Right.
I'm self-deprecating.
Okay.
But it's you can think of it like that. Genetics plays a role,
Yeah.
but also everything else around it plays a role.
Okay. Gotcha.
Super interesting.
Yeah. No, I could talk hours on that stuff because I never was informed enough on that type of thing. And this type of stuff we're talking about, website available to go on to maybe get some information in the area.
Yeah, I mean the DNR website has a lot of reports and things like that.
Okay.
There are outside websites that have scientific papers that people can read. The Google machine does offer quite a few free papers.
Okay.
There's other places that offer stuff that's done that you have to pay for, which
Right.
if you contact one of us, most of us have that stuff, so
Okay.
we can distribute it to you. But the stuff that I'm not talking about like an article from a fishing magazine.
Right. Yeah. No,
I'm
not-
talking about peer-reviewed literature.
That's
So it's
exactly-
research that's done by scientists that is critiqued by other scientists in order to get to where it's at, to get published.
Right.
So it's not like I have an idea, I write up a paper, I publish it. That's not how it works.
Right.
Like there's a bunch of my peers that are going, no, Jordan, you're an idiot. Think about this, think about this, think about this. And so that we get the best paper out there.
Right.
And once it's gone through this rigorous process, then it becomes published literature. And then we consider it fact, right? It's closer to fact. It's like our best knowledge about that subject at this point.
So what you're telling me is the guy that wrote the magazine article that I read my whole life, that's not a biologist, he just made that up?
I'm not saying that.
Okay, all right.
He might have.
Right. But he was able to publish it, and everybody thought it.
That happens a lot. But I'm not saying that anglers don't know what they're talking about.
Oh, exactly, 100%. But it's just not scientific to the point of where it is. It's a fact.
It's not the same process.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a good way to say it. It's
Anybody can write an article in a magazine.
Yep.
Anybody.
Right.
And not anybody can publish a scientific paper.
Correct. There you go. Bing. That's what I was looking for. See, he's got all the answers today. So I think we can probably get to kind of some closing here. We talked about regulations Regulations, regulations, regulations.
Read
Read
'em.
them. Read them, read them, read them. You don't even have to really read them. You probably go online and just,
Oh, yeah.
they're right there.
Yep, they're all
right
online.
there. You don't need a book. You can go right online and get them.
On your phone.
On your phone. You can get them right on your phone. Boating regulations. Make sure we're doing it. He's not on that side of things. We're going to have some of that stuff later. Conservation warden stuff. But they're in there, people. Make sure you read it. Fishing regulations, like what Jordan talked about, read them. Read them top to bottom. I'm guilty of it. I don't read them. I'm still going off of stuff my dad taught me in the 80s and 70s. It's changed. I should probably sit down and read them. I get it. I was a big tournament fisherman, so I was up to date on all that stuff most of the time. But just take the time to read them. Help these guys out. Like you said, there's 7 of them for 200 plus miles. Let's make it 700,000. Let's get involved with that. You see something you're worried about, call them up. They may already know about it, but at least they get that. They get the call and they can address the issue if it hasn't been addressed. You catch some of them foreign fish or whatever you want to call them, put them on ice, call them up, they'll come get them. They got to be able to do research. You're just assisting what they're doing. Your boat's leaking, you got a sheen, you got some of that stuff, address that stuff. Make the longevity for the kids later in life so that they get the same resources we have. Let's make it better. So I guess in closing, that's what this was about, talking a little bit about fish, talking a little bit about what we can do. Make sure you don't transfer, like Jordan said, water to water. Like you said, Mississippi River, Pool 7, Pool 8, you could do that. Pool 7 over to Lake Neshonoc, you shouldn't, but it's all right. Pool 7 to Lake Neshonoc, definitely not gonna do that. Water, aquatic vegetation, take the time to clean it off. I got pulled over one time because I came from Lake Onalaska and I had stuff hanging off, and it was actually, forgot which warden pulled me over, but I got pulled into Quick Trip to get gas, and he pulled over, and we had a good conversation about it, and ever since then I always reached underneath and grabbed my stuff, pulled it off. It doesn't take long.
It just takes a couple seconds.
Some guys make a little, they go and they get one of them little expendable hooks and they just grab it, slide it off. It takes a couple seconds, you know? And you're at the landings and there's a pile of weeds, because some people don't take the time. You just move the stuff off to the side. Yep. It's not that hard to do, you know what I mean? Just do that type of thing. So, appreciate you stopping by. Yeah. Appreciate the content. Anything else you want to add? Just feel free.
Oh, I would just say if everybody does just a little bit, it ends up being a big bit.
Gotcha.
So, we all do these little things you're talking about. We all, if it looks strange, report it to somebody.
Yep.
If you have questions, please call us. If you have a question about regulations, look it up on your phone. Everybody's got one. Yep. The regulations did just recently change on the Mississippi River for almost everything.
Okay.
So, look at that stuff. It's really important, because I can say with certainty that opposed to 30 years ago, fishing is way better now than it ever was then.
Okay.
Like, everybody remembers that as the good old days,
Yep.
but when you look at all the metrics that we actually have, the data,
and the numbers of fishermen that are out there
the
now?
size of the fish, the number of anglers, the number of fish they're catching, the rate at which they're catching the fish are all better now than it was 30 years ago. We want to maintain that and increase that going forward. So we need your help. We're happy to help. We do this for you guys. Please.
Yep.
Enjoy the resource and have fun.
Yep. Enjoy what you got. And make sure we got it later in life too. And like I said, if you come from out of state, give these guys a call. They're happy to talk about fish. That's what they do. I mean, give them a call. Talk to them. Don't call here. I like to talk to you too, but I'm just like, duh. I mean, I don't go out fishing no more, people. I'm here. That's just how it goes. I can tell you where the bluegills are in the spring. That's all I can tell you. So
They're in the water.
they're in the water. Shallow. They're around March, April. But yeah, that was awesome. I appreciate your time once again. And then always, comment, subscribe, click the notification bell to witness the madness that I call speed, money, and no breaks. We're out.